we have today's speaker, that's Miss Aishwarya Sridhar, and we're really excited to have you over here, ma'am. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Now, getting ahead to our speaker. Before the first question, of course, definitely, can you please tell us about your background?
Okay, so hi everyone. I'm super excited to be here and I thank my captain and QFIS for this. I am a wildlife filmmaker, photographer, and a presenter. I live in Mumbai and I'm 23 years old. I have completed my graduation in mass media. And yeah, that's it.
That's actually so. How did you get into photography? Like, was it from a pretty young age, or it was post 20s?
No, it was from a pretty young age actually. So I live in a place called Panvel in Mumbai, which is the greener part of the city. So as a child, I used to run behind butterflies and chase fireflies in my balcony. And that's the childhood I grew up with, so much in nature. And that kind of fueled the passion for wildlife and for being outdoors. That apart that I was a studious child as well, but definitely I used to accompany my father on his various wildlife trips, and all of these put together kind of grew my love in the space of wildlife. And then when I got my first camera as a birthday gift for my 12th birthday, that was like my best toy, my favorite partner in all my adventures. And that fueled the passion and love for photography. And somewhere also down the line, I was realizing the importance of visuals in our life. So yes, definitely that's how my love for photography began.
I think this covers the most important part that growing up actually taught you the love of photography and
Yes.
especially the wildlife aspect. Did you ever think to click to get into any other field of photography, like not just covering up the wildlife, but be
Huh?
it any kind of?
No, I didn't want to like shift my focus away from wildlife. I have dabbled in street photography a bit for my college magazines and journals because I was doing mass media. So I was the photo editor of my college magazine. So at that point, we were like told to do a little bit of street photography as well. So I've dabbled in that and I've dabbled in a bit of product photography for my class assignments. But apart from that, no, I always had like my passion was wildlife.
But and I'm sure that the other features or the other segments did not
Yeah.
interest you as much as
No. Yeah.
okay.
It
uh,
wasn't that interesting for me.
Okay, before moving ahead to the next question, mentees, you can please use the Q&A box or to ask your questions, or you can also put it up in the chat box. We'll be taking all of them. So, you mentioned about getting a camera in class 12th, but you were into photography much before that.
Yes.
How did you click through your phone? I assume that you were clicking pictures through your phone.
Yeah, like through my phone. So I had a small like point and shoot camera as my first camera at the age of 12. And after that, it like graduated slowly. I began to like discover the camera myself. And what's like really started into serious photography was somewhere in my late teens. Maybe about 16, 17. That time I got a DSLR for myself, and that time I began like really taking photography seriously.
So, according to you, what equipment do you recommend for photography in wildlife? And like you already mentioned, you started with
Yeah.
a camera, but what do you recommend for beginners, especially?
So for beginners, what I would recommend is you can go for a point and shoot, which has a good focal range. Like you have the Canon SX70, which gives you like a huge zoom, 65x optical zoom, which is like great for wildlife. You can like literally shoot much more than what a telephoto of 800 mm, that's a max telephoto that's available in the market, which is very expensive, would give you. And as even during using these point and shoot cameras, you can also use the manual feature, the aperture priority and the shutter priority modes on these point and shoot itself. So when you're using that, you kind of learn also as to how it functions on a proper DSLR or a mirrorless for that matter. And once you have the budget to go for a DSLR or a mirrorless, you graduate to it. So the graduation is like very smooth. You don't feel like you buy something huge and then wonder, how do I use this?
Most important question, like be any part of photography, wildlife especially.
Yeah.
What makes you think that an image is turned out to be successful?
Oh,
The
that's a very
best,
lovely question.
the best picture, or we can say the big picture.
Okay, so basically, when you look at any image, what I see that an image is great is that it should itself tell a story. So when you look at an image, the entire without reading a caption or without reading words to it, you should be able to know what's happening in the picture. If you can see and make out what's happening, that's like the best picture taken. And like when you, for any competition grade, if you're trying to enter, try and see that if you're entering images such that, if you keep looking at that image, you should be able to discover multiple aspects of it, not just like staring at it for like once or twice, but if you keep on looking at it at different points of the day, at different days, it should still interest you. That is a good image.
Wow, I think this is one of the most important answers that we all need to know about. Coming to wildlife photography, like we all know that there's movement of animals,
Yes.
how to get over the blurriness of those pictures. And at what distance, there, I'm going to combine the two questions together.
Okay.
Like, what distance should we cover? Like, mm, is there any minimum distance required to get over the blurriness or to get the big picture or the right picture?
So by blurriness, do you mean like in terms of focus?
Yes, animals definitely do not stay still. So,
Yeah. So that is very simple. You just keep a higher shutter speed and you can freeze their action. But the main part is like if you're trying to frame a portrait of them, like looking into your camera and getting their facial expression, then that is a huge challenge, especially with uh, monkey like animals like the macaque or the tiger. They don't keep their head still. Even birds for that matter, they keep moving their head, and you can't even instruct them to look in a certain way because they won't listen to you at all. You don't have any control over your subject. So what you get is what you take in your camera. So you have to be really quick on field, and you should be able to know your camera extremely well, because that is the only way in which you can override the challenges on field.
wow, I think this is something clarification which we all needed, but thank you so much. As a wildlife photographer, what does field work look like? What are the skills required for field work? Like your, in simpler terms, one day in your life
Oh,
into the wild.
it's I would like give it one word in terms of like fun for me. One day in on the field. But yeah, so field work basically requires a lot of planning, a lot of uh, like sitting on the computer and planning your entire shoot out so that you know what to expect when you go out there on the field. And when it comes to wildlife photography, especially, you can pre visualize certain frames in your mind and try and get those on field. That is what I usually do. So before I go for a particular trip, I read up about the species, about their behavior, about the place that I'm going, and I make notes. So all of these stay with me. And then on obviously on the field, yes, there is an element of surprise, and there is an element like when you go and you discover something new, you can tend to change your frames as well. But I mentally have a picture as to I want this type of frames in this these 2 day trip that I am going for. And then obviously I ensure at least a checklist is ticked of my types of frames that I want. But apart from that, if I find something new, then obviously I'll include that in the picture as well.
That's amazing. You're currently working as a host for Discovery, for the series called Nature for Future. Can you
Yeah.
tell us about your experience there and how did you get over there?
Oh, it was the experience was amazing. I was super thrilled and honored to do that series for Discovery Channel India, and it's over. In fact, it happened during the lockdown phase, and it was an eight-part series that was extremely, uh, like I was super excited, super thrilled to be doing it, and especially I had Diya Mirza as my first guest, so I was like, yay! But yeah, it was amazing. I had a lovely time talking to so many different scientists and experts and wildlife photographers and filmmakers who have worked on India's endangered species. And when you listen to their stories, their behind the scene tales, there's so much you get to learn from that whole experience as well. And there's so much that we don't know about these species too, which comes out through their work that they have done on field. So it was a very enriching journey.
I'm sure this one's going to be your most memorable journey ever.
Yeah.
Uh, a lot of mentees want to know that didn't you get scared with the animals, from them or any scary movement? Combining this with the other question, your adventurous day at work. When I say adventurous day at work, that refers to the field work into the wildlife.
Okay. Oh, there have been like a couple of scary moments in my whole journey so far. So I'll probably like speak about two of them over here. So one was I was in on a beach shooting seagulls. Okay, and I was like relatively smaller that time, so I was so busy and I was so lost in the whole process of shooting that I didn't realize that I was actually in a quicksand kind of an area, and I was actually sinking, and I was like totally lost in this scene, and I'm going on filling frame after frame on my camera, and the seagulls are also sitting so quiet. I am so close to them, and suddenly a dog comes and they all fly away. And that's when I was like, okay, I need to follow them to go and, see if I can get some more pictures. And I try to move, and I'm not able to. And I look down and I'm knee deep in the sand. I'm completely stuck. I don't know how to get out. And I was like, I called for help. My dad was around. He came. He pulled me out, thankfully, in one piece. But yeah, I came out. That was pretty scary.
This is indeed very scary. I would have freaked out, I swear. It's super
I lost my shoes in the process.
you okay, that was but definitely this is going to be one of the most I'm sure this is a lifetime of memory that
Oh
will
yeah, and there's so many more. Like I remember once I came back from a trip to Tadoba, and this happened at home, in fact. So I came back from a trip seeing tigers, and I was like, I came home, and my auntie opened the door, and she's like telling me, so we have a independent house in Panvel, so there's this car park area, and when I was there, she told me like there's a shoelace lying next to your leg. So how come your shoes are tied, but how come there's a shoelace lying there? So I just turned to look down, and I was like, oh my god, it's not a shoelace, it was a baby Russell's viper. And Russell's viper are extremely venomous even when they are babies. So that was again a scary moment, and I had my pet as well very close, so I didn't want him also to get hurt, and then there was a lot of drama at home.
but okay, so what are the difficulties faced by a wildlife photographer on a regular basis?
Oh, in terms of difficulties, I would say the first one is the lack of funding, and obviously searching for funding. That is a major challenge to overcome on field, because you want to start a project, but there's obviously lack of funds. So how do you go about arranging them? And so that's one challenge. The second one is obviously overcoming weather conditions, because when you're out there in the wild, there are various challenges like harsh weather, and sometimes unpredictable conditions, then insect bites, mosquitoes. So all of these are obviously physical challenges that you have to bear with on the field.
That's actually, Uh, so what are your thoughts on raw images versus images that have been worked upon Photoshop? Or what's your aspect of editing them?
Oh, I feel post processing is a very important part of creating an image, because no amount of what you click on field, you have to like do a little bit of editing of that image, no matter how perfect it is, to get a good picture out of it. So when I mean editing, I mean the basic corrections on Photoshop or Lightroom for that matter, or even your own photo processing software. Like if it is Canon, it is DP, Digital Photo Professional DPP. If it is Nikon, I'm not pretty sure what it is, but I think it is NXD Capture if I'm not wrong. Okay, please don't kill me, Nikon users. I am not familiar with
So,
Nikon. Yes, that is obviously one of the softwares you can use. But when you mean like heavily manipulating images, that is also it comes to each person's viewpoint, at like it applies to like every person's choice. And I am someone who does not like to touch up their images much, because I like to keep them original. And because what I see on the field, what I see out there in the wild, I'd like to convey that moment to my viewers. But I don't find it any wrong to kind of manipulate images, as long as you're not twisting the actual reality. Like if you're doing it from an artistic point of view, it's fine.
this is a lesson to be noted, mentees. Please do note it down that over editing is not what people want to see. Keep it original, but
Yeah,
get creative.
yeah, if you're doing it in terms for a competition entry, then please do not over process it, because they would definitely check your original, your raw file, and your JPEG that you submit. So you can't over process your images at all for a competition, except the basic edits. But if you're doing it for posting on social media, and like you have a really creative aspect in your mind that you want to bring it out through obviously image manipulation on Photoshop, then you can go ahead and do that, as long as it does not twist the reality.
That's amazing. So Ritika wants to know, did you do any internship
No,
before
I didn't
getting
do any
into
internship.
this?
I'm a complete Google's child when it comes to learning wildlife photography, on camera presenting, or filmmaking for that matter. But if you want to obviously get on more in terms of knowledge and everything, I would recommend you to do an internship. You can.
Shashank wants to know that he's an engineering student, but he loves photography. So how can he proceed further? He's got Canon 700D.
Oh, lovely, Shashank. It's a good camera. And if you're an engineering student, you'd obviously know how the camera works, because it has a lot of science in it. And that is one good aspect for you. But all you need to do is just go out there and click. Whether in terms of wildlife, you can go to places near your home, probably right now, because again, we are going through the pandemic phase. But if not, if you can travel far and wide, then go and visit parks, tiger sanctuaries, bird sanctuaries. They offer you a good platform, a good place where you can capture images, and then you can come back and process them and see if you get a good moment. Then you can try entering competitions. In your own college competitions, you can try first. 'Cause I'm pretty sure you'll have college events, like college festivals as well, which will definitely have a photography aspect to that.
Megha wants to know, in fact, others too, that how difficult was it to get the award-winning picture of yours? Like Canon 80D.
Hello.
Did my voice break? I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Megha wants to know, how difficult was it for you to get the award-winning picture of yours? And is
Okay.
Canon 80D enough for a wildlife photographer?
Yes, Canon 80D is good enough, but what comes into picture of wildlife photography is that your lens plays a important role as well. So if you're using a kit lens, which is I think max 250 mm, if you're having a Canon kit lens, then possibly you would be limited when you're capturing a species like the tiger, because sometimes they are like very far away, or if you're capturing birds as well, because again birds sometimes sit quite far and it becomes difficult. So that when the problem comes with the lens, because that is what gives you your zoom, the focal length determines your zoom, so that is the whole issue when it comes. But as a camera, 80D is good enough. You can use it to click wildlife, but just check your lens out. And
Okay, so how do you plan? Sorry, please continue.
no, no, tell me.
Okay, how do you plan your shoots and what are the techniques that you use? One of the most important questions, again, the mentees want to know.
Oh, great. I'll just come back to that. I think there was one more question that Megha had asked, right, about my award winning picture.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'll first complete that and then I'll come back to this. Okay, so the difficulties was one, how do I focus on the fireflies? Because at point at like when you're clicking at night, especially fireflies, and there is no moonlight to guide you, it can get difficult when you like kind of focus on your subject. So that becomes a huge challenge, and what I did to overcome that was I raised my ISO to the max that I could, the camera could support. I focused on the tree, and then I went back and brought it to the ISO I wanted, and then began clicking. But that had to be done like a couple of times until I got the focus right. And again, a challenge on field for fireflies was the wind, because when the wind, like when there is windy conditions, the tree moves, and I'm shooting on extremely slow shutter speed to kind of get the fireflies light in frame. That again becomes a challenge. Luckily, that day it wasn't that windy, so that allowed me to frame the tree pretty well without the shake. But that again is a challenge. And then obviously navigating wild animals. The place in Bhandardhara is an ideal habitat for leopards, for snakes. So at night when you're walking alone, these are creatures which are nocturnal. So that was scary, but it was also kind of adventurous. It was like my adrenaline moment for me.
It's actually very scary listening to it. It's that rush which you get. But yes, coming to the techniques that you use, any precautions that you need to take in advance?
Oh, so I take like, especially for insect bites, I take mosquito repellents and all that. If I'm going to a swampy area or something like that. Even for jungles, I do take my Odomos. That is good enough for me. And in terms of technique, I like to capture animals and their behavior. Even it says to for the birds as well. So for me, my images have to tell a story, or my films also. As a stand alone image, if I show you something, it has to convey something. Even if it's a portrait, then it has to kind of look into the animal's soul. That is what I believe in. So that is the main technique that I use. And while going on the field, like there are certain times, like suppose if I'm filming flamingos, then their arrival and their departure is dependent on tide. So I check the tide timings beforehand itself, and I make note so that my trip coincides with the time that they will be feeding or they will be roosting, whichever behavior I want to capture accordingly. If it's for instance tiger photography, then I ensure that the times that I visit the park are during summers mostly, because that is the time when predators are highly active and you can easily spot them at the water bodies, because it's really hot in the central Indian jungles and you can like get excellent frames. But then again, if I want to like capture tigers in the green, after monsoon or pre-monsoon, then I go during month of June or October, November to get that phase of their life. So each animal, their different phases happen during different seasons. So according and depending on the behavior that I want to capture, I plan my visits.
That's one advice to everyone. Please do think over what you need to capture and all the precautions needed for the same. Akash says that high ISO produce noise. How do you handle that?
Hi Akash, yes, high ISO produces noise, and what you can do is in post production, like when you're processing your image, there is a tool that you can use to rectify it. I use Neat Image, and you can clean your image noise with that. But it happens in cameras which are more the beginners level, so that is a huge problem to overcome. So you can use it uh, the in Photoshop, and you can clean up the noise using Neat Image.
Adding to the question, Ritika wants to know, how do you manage grains in the background?
Grains is same as noise. If you're meaning the extremely grainy image because of using a high ISO, then it's obviously noise. So that is reduced or cleared with Neat Image. So you have to purchase Neat Image, and you can use it as a plugin to Photoshop, and that's like you're sorted after that.
One important question which everyone wants to know, how to earn a livelihood out of wildlife photography.
Oh, it's tough. Let me be honest. I use wildlife filmmaking and presenting as the mainstream of income than photography, because when it comes to like just photography, you can probably earn by giving workshops, by doing tours, and by selling your images or prints for that matter. But apart from that, I am not sure as to how you can earn in photography as such, unless you get assignments and you are working with a magazine, or you're working for a particular website or a company which is employed you to click for them, then obviously you earn that way. Or you can freelance and also earn. And so what I do is I freelance, and I have my filmmaking side to supplement it. And I also do video editing, so I get income
One
there as
tough, perfect. I think we all know how to now plan up our expenses. One tough question. This is going to be my favorite. Canon or Nikon for a beginner?
well. I am a Canon fan, so I will say Canon
Same.
because
But
uh,
yes, what camera, what do you suggest for a beginner who's just starting into wildlife photography?
it also depends on your budget. Like if you're very rich, you can go for a pro level even if you're beginner. But if not, then you can start with a point and shoot like how I started. And I learned all my basic techniques on a point and shoot, and then graduated to a DSLR. So you can do that, and that really helps you also, because in the point and shoot it's easy to navigate. It's a small compact camera and very simple. You have even creative modes in that, so you can use it has also has presets for sports, for landscape, for night photography. So you can use all those and learn obviously. But if you're wanting to purchase a DSLR or a mirrorless, then you can go for a Canon or a Nikon. Hello.
Yeah, I'm there. I'm so sorry if there was some lagging, but
It
ye-
says my internet is unstable. Why? Oh, these times of Wi-Fi are, I don't know
I
when
took.
the internet is stable or not. I think it should be now.
Okay, yes. Moving ahead, mentees, if there's some internet lagging, just stay tuned. We are right here. We're not going out anywhere. But one question which we would want to know, does wildlife photography have an impact on local communities?
Oh, yes, it does. It has a huge impact on conservation and on local communities as well. One important thing that wildlife photography does is that it supports the livelihood of these local communities. So, when you look at wildlife photography, it kind of starts tourism. And when you have ecotourism, it fuels the house of the people living around the national park, around a sanctuary, a wetland, or any park for that matter, any forest for that matter. And many of these local people from these tribal communities, they have also started developing uh, their interest in photography. So now you have like people on the field over there who act as informers. They send me images, which they have taken on their point and shoot cameras, and they tell me like this bird is sighted at this point and this tiger is at this location. So you obviously get a barrage of information through these people, and that their interest also comes into wildlife, and that thing gets developed because they find that it's a way to earn money and they get income. And there are so many photographers who sometimes give them a basic camera to start with, and they also become amateur photographers. They're able to film using those cameras, and those footages have a content or a market outside for their content. So that obviously like creates a whole new industry and a whole new sector as well. Okay, I just lost my host. Okay, let me see. You can put your questions on the Q&A and let me see if I can answer. Okay, Naresh, can you suggest some gears which helps on field? It depends on what kind of photography you are doing. Like if it's landscape, your gear will change on your lens will change. But if it is wildlife, then your gear changes. So in terms of wildlife, you need to have a good zoom lens. A 150 600 or a 100 400 would be great for you.
Uh, yes, moving ahead. I'm so
Hi,
sorry
you're
for that.
back. No problem. I just went on to answer a Q&A, one of the
Uh,
questions in the Q&A.
I'm so sorry for the glitch that happened,
Oh,
but
no,
yes,
no problem. I am
definitely.
fully aware of the technical glitches that can happen during a Zoom call, so it's fine.
Is there any age that you recommend to start photography?
No, photography has no age barrier. Even a 5-year-old can start it, a 50-year-old can start it, a 100-year-old can start it. So you can be any age, it doesn't matter.
Um, any particular experience that you would recommend for the aspiring photographers?
Um, Definitely visit a tiger sanctuary. Because the happiness and the thrill that you get by tracking a tiger in the wild is a different experience altogether, and it's one thing that every person must like kind of enjoy in life. So yeah, definitely visit any tiger national park.
Do we need, Menti wants to know, do we need to invest in gorilla pods?
Gorilla pods are extremely short tripods, so they come handy when you're shooting, possibly from a vehicle, or if you're like doing camera trapping, that kind of things. So not necessarily unless you want to do that kind of photography, but from a vehicle, if you're wanting to click, you can use a beanbag and yet get perfect images in terms of just still images. But for videos you need a tripod.
Is there any internship that you would suggest for a beginner to start with? We discussed about internships, but a
Yes.
lot of mentees want to know that how to get an internship into wildlife photography.
Oh, I myself didn't go for any internships, so I don't know how you can possibly go about. But you can possibly try under existing wildlife photographer, like someone who's doing possibly workshops, or who's uh, having their own academy and their own workshop thing. You can ask them for an opportunity and see if you can assist them and learn.
What a mentee wants to know, what will be the first thing to do if someone wants to start a career in photography?
First, learn photography. Learn what it takes, what is a like what your camera does, what it's capable of, what are its weaknesses, what are its strengths. So when you know your camera inside out, you are quick on the field. And if you're like going for wildlife, then you don't need to know much about light, as in terms of external artificial lighting. Okay, unless you're doing macro photography, then you need to know about artificial lighting. But you need to have like a good knowledge of on field sunlight and backlight, that kind of external lighting. But you don't have to have knowledge of the three-part light setup as to in terms of, a product photography which involves artificial lights being added. So that does not apply in wildlife. But apart from that, you need to like know your camera inside out. Like your camera should be a part of who you are.
Uh,
That comes with practice.
is there any online course that you would recommend?
Plenty. You can go and search on Udemy. There are so many online courses available. You can pick whichever's within your budget and go for it.
Can you tell us more about night wildlife photography? What are the things that we need to take care of at getting good night wildlife pictures?
So when it comes to night photography, you need to have a camera and a lens which can click in low light, because at that point you need to have artificial lighting for night, and usually that comes in the form of a torch. You can't use a huge uh, external flashlight or something like that for wildlife, because it really disturbs the animal. So you all you have in hand is a torch, and how do you get a good image using that? So usually what I click at night are nocturnal creatures like frogs, or snails, or snakes, or fireflies, which can be easily handled using a small torchlight or a flashlight. But when it comes to like bigger animals like sloth bears and leopards, which I have done a couple of times, those are, you need to have good powerful torches, and you can use your vehicle light to click them.
One important question: how to get work for Discovery or Nat Geo? And are there any exams for it? I
No,
mean,
no, no, no exams. Okay, you obviously, one main thing is you need to have a portfolio beforehand itself when you go, and it is difficult to contact these channels and get through. So you have to keep trying, and the more you try, somewhere you get a breakthrough and you enter.
that's amazing. I mean, please go build up your portfolios.
Yeah,
There are no exams for this for
yeah, no
sure.
exams.
Definitely. Any camera recommendation for the night wildlife pictures?
For night, I use a Canon 1DX Mark II and a 5D Mark III. For night, they are very good in low light conditions. But I think even in terms of Nikon, you have D850, D4, D5. They're all the higher end cameras. They are very good in low light, and even like a mid range DSLR or a mirrorless should be good enough.
Varnika wants to know that is Behance a good platform?
I don't know. I'm not on Behance.
Okay, we
I'm so
have a
sorry.
mentee asking us that the mentee stays in the city.
Okay.
How can he get into wildlife photography? And he's a student, so that makes it obvious that he cannot shift anywhere.
Yes. You don't have to. I live in Mumbai city for that matter. I am still doing wildlife photography. So, if you want to start with your own backyard. That is like the biggest place for you to explore, and that too free of cost. You don't have to invest anything. So go to a nearby garden and shoot macro, shoot beetles, shoot birds, shoot caterpillars, shoot flies, wasps, snails, snakes, lizards, geckos. These are all freely available. You don't have to pay anything to shoot them, and use that to build your as a portfolio, as your for building practice. Use that. That is great for even city dwellers. Even shooting a pigeon can help you get into wildlife, because you can train yourself as to how in their movement of their flights, when do they fly, like how do I capture a flying bird, to like shoot, learn all of that. I trained on a crow, how to click flying birds. I used a crow as my model.
Now, this question is going to be my favorite. So, which has been your favorite animal or bird that
Oh
you've
my.
shot, and which one is your dream animal or bird that you want to shoot?
Oh, favorite is very difficult because I absolutely love everything that I shoot. So there is no one favorite as such. But yes, I do have a soft corner for big cats. But there's no like favorite as such. I really love clicking all forms of wildlife, birds, mammals, macro, landscapes. All are a good part to click.
Which is your dream shot or the dream animal that you want to capture?
Okay, my dream animal. There's so many. I
Wow.
I have to see it. I would really love to capture the jaguar at Pantanal. I would also love to capture the snow leopards in our own Himalayas. And I want to even see the purple frog that is very rare. And I want to take an image of it in its habitat. So, yeah, they come out for a very specific period of time. So, that's a huge, uh, like a very, very, very rare species.
What is the camera lens that can be used to get animals which are far in focus?
So you need a good zoom lens, a camera, any from a beginner grade to a pro grade, you can use any camera as such. But in terms of lens, if you're very far, you need a good focal length lens, like maybe a 400 or 500, 600, 800, that kind of lens, that kind of zoom lens.
Which is the macro lens you would recommend?
I am using the Canon 100 macro. That is very good. So I use it with an extension tube. That gives you really close up macro shots.
One thing, like one fear that you face that at any time that you cannot do capture this animal, you cannot do this.
Uh,
Do
I haven't faced any fear as such, but there are frustrating moments on the field, definitely, because when you're seeing something and you're not able to capture what you have in your mind and on the field, something is not working out in terms of light, in terms of some distracting element or background noise, and then it gets frustrating because you're not getting the image that you have in your mind. So yeah, that you have to overcome on the field. Like sometimes I am like, I'm not getting it. Why? That happens.
which lens you use for your lights of passion photo?
Okay, I used a Canon 16-35 a wide angle lens.
Can you tell us something about your upcoming project?
I have like a couple of projects coming up in terms of wildlife filmmaking side. So I'm working on a documentary on the primates of India, and my a documentary which I had been working on for a couple of years is gearing up for release. So which I will announce shortly.
Please stay tuned on our Insta page. I'm already following. Stay tuned for all
Yes,
the news
yes.
that's
Please
happening.
follow me on Instagram. My handle is Chiku_wild. That is CHIKOO_wild, and I will be putting up the release information shortly. So please stay tuned for that.
We are excited. We're definitely excited and going to keep an update or keep a tab on the same.
Yes, please.
Um, Shashank wants to know how about Tamron 150-600?
It's a good lens from what my friends have told me. I haven't personally used the Tamron lens, but my friends have, and they tell me it's a good one. Even the Sigma 150-600 is also good. So you can see whichever goes for your budget and you can pick that.
This is important. Who has been your inspirational photographers?
Oh, so many in this field. Ratika Ramaswamy, Kalyan Verma, then Sudhir Shivram, Latika Nath, Ashvika Kapoor, even in terms of international photographers like Beverly Joubert, Shannon Wild, then there is Ronan Donovan. All of these people have been like amazing. They have an amazing body of work and whom I like really look up to.
As a wildlife photographer, do you need to be a part of any association or a community?
No, not needed. You can be an individual freelancer. That's what I do.
How to claim copyright of images?
It's very simple. What you click is you have your own copyright for that. So there's you don't have to apply for any copyright or anything as such. So whatever you click, you it is your property. So obviously
What
you have a copyright on that.
Wow. Please, this is an important point because in the situation of social media being
So
the
yes, please put your name on your image. You can put it with a copyright mark, which in my Mac it is option G, but please keep in your I think Windows. I think it's Alt G if I'm not wrong. So you can use that and you can add a copyright symbol in your image and then type your name out, and please put that, because in today's world of social media there have been instances even with me when someone else has taken my image without my permission, and at that time I had not even put a copyright mark on it. So it happens, and your friends come and tell you, they share that image and then they write to you saying this person is using it and is claiming as if it's their own. So please have your image, your name on the image always.
do you read books on wildlife to find out about any animal you
Oh yes,
spot?
I do. I do read books on wildlife. I do read articles online. Uh, I keep updating myself with information of different species. Some of my favorite books have been the ones written by Jim Corbett about his days in the wild, his stories of man-eating leopards and man-eating tigers. They have been like really favorite books and stories that I've grown up on. And there are many books like you can use to identify birds. Like there's the Indian, like the birds of the Indian subcontinent by Grimmett, Richard Grimmett, and Carol Inskip and Tim Inskip. So you can use that to identify birds.
One important question: from where did you learn editing, or where
Uh,
can the mentees learn editing from?
are you talking about video editing or image editing?
If you can mention about both, that will
Okay.
help.
So I learned both of it online. Okay, YouTube tutorials. Just go and type how do I use Photoshop. You will get free n number of them. And also I learned my basics through a workshop which I did with Sudhir Shivaram sir. So there was a basic photography course that he had done over 2 3 days. So that's where I learned the basics of Photoshop, and then I brushed up my skills and became more professional and more pro with the YouTube and tutorials online. But editing is a major part of photography, and no image looks beautiful without little bit of editing in Lightroom, Photoshop, DPP, anything. But you have to edit your images to some extent.
Many people crop out the watermark and post the pictures. How to
Huh.
deal with that?
So what I use, if I find that the image is really beautiful and it's something that people can kind of share in a and not give me credit for, is I put the watermark right in the center of the image, and what I do is I reduce the opacity of the text, so it looks as if it is a part and it's embedded in the image. That way people can't rob. Even if they do share the image, your copyright is like on there, like boom, it's there. So
One last question. Can you give us any tips for the aspiring wildlife photographers?
please go ahead and practice, 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 because the more you practice, the better you become. And learn your camera. That is the most important. And whenever you get a chance to click to showcase your work, be out like upright and go and show it. When people comment on your images, even if you do get a little bit of criticism, take it in a positive way and see why the person is telling that. If you feel that it is a completely invalid, then don't take it to heart. But if you feel that there is some truth in what the person is saying, then try and work around that. But and don't let the difficulties overpower you. Keep at it and success will be yours.
One question. I'm sorry, we'll take up this question.
Yes,
Doesn't
yes,
the
please.
watermark in middle destroy the beauty of the image?
Oh yes, it does. But what to do in like in today's age when there is a threat of people kind of taking your image without your permission, that is the only option that you have. But yes, it definitely destroys the beauty of the image. So what you do is you can reduce the opacity of the text. So that way, what happens is that even if you're writing your name, like for example, I write Aishwarya Sridhar in bold, and then if I'm putting it in white, then I'll reduce the opacity so it becomes a very light grayish color on the on the image. So it doesn't look that bad.
That's one important point, lesson learned. Please, everyone, take a note of the same.
Yeah.
With this, we come and end to the. Okay, one last question for
Oh,
sure. Can you tell us about your journey of the winning picture? And did you expect that it could be a winning picture?
no. I did not expect it at all. I just went there to click fireflies. And I wanted to click them because I have seen them as a child and I always was fascinated with fireflies. I'm someone who is a big fan of Harry Potter and Percy Jackson. So I live in the world of Narnia and, seeing all bizarre creatures. I always dream of be living in a fantasy world like that. So fireflies are those objects for me, those things for me that transport me to a magical world. And I have always dreamt of capturing fireflies when I started out my wildlife photography journey. So I was like, when I got a chance to visit Bandardara and during the firefly season, I was like, yes, this is it. I'll go and capture at least few images. I went there, I met up with a couple of local people, chatted with them, got to know which is the best place to go out there. And then I started my trek. It was about 6:30 in the night, in the evening, late evening, and it was a pretty uh, tiring walk, carrying all your equipment, your food, your dinner, and all that, and walking. And finally, you see some fireflies, but they're not in that great numbers as you dream it to be. And then finally you come across this one tree which is like Diwali decorations on it, like top to bottom, completely full of fireflies. And I was like, wow, this is pure magic. And so I clicked images in a different perspective. Initially I used a telephoto zoom lens and it was a crop, pretty tight frame of the tree, and that wasn't evoking the kind of reaction I wanted it to. And that's when I was searching for which element I could include in the environment. And I looked up and I saw the stars. And I was like, wow. So you have stars on Earth and you have stars in the sky. What better combination than this that could be, So I merged both of it. I used a wide angle lens, and then that's how the winning image came into being.
Wow, that was actually, that the gaga moment that you
Yeah.
actually had. With this, thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. Thank you so much, ma'am, for giving us this
Thank you. And
opportunity.
thank you. Please don't call me ma'am. You can call me Aishwarya.
You have to go and follow her to hear out her big announcement anytime soon. I'm already following her and I'm
How
quite
sweet.
excited for the big project. But thank you so much, Mantis, for joining in. This webinar was in collaboration with QFIS. Please check out www.qfis.com. Thank you so much, everyone. See you all for the next session. Bye bye.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.